This is episode 1 of SWADEcast, where we're going to be doing introductions and talking about our opinions on the new edition of Savage Worlds.
Is it SWADE? I am SWADE! The whole thing is SWADE! I can't have this clean.
All right, so we're in episode 1 of SWADEcast, and we have a bare bones crew. But it's me, PM Bobby, GM's table, all of that stuff with my buddy Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike.
Beautiful Mike.
Thanks.
Beautiful. You guys are going to start to recognize him from, well, this, as well as if you're watching our actual play, which when this episode comes out, it won't be out, but you might be downloading this as a back issue.
Yeah.
I don't think...
It'll probably be something you want to listen to. Right.
Well, I guess that'll move into the first thing. I feel like introductions are going to be pretty short today because there's only 2 of us. We don't have special guests or any of that stuff. But, what have we been doing? And one of the big ones is we're doing an actual play podcast as well with GM's Table, new podcast, Game Table.
Yeah.
And it's not Savage Worlds. I hope that's not blasphemous.
You don't have to tell them. You have to listen first, and then...
The second they turn it on, it's like, yeah, we're running Monster of the Week. They'll be like, what is this bullshit? But
they'll leave.
Yeah, they'll leave and do all this. We love Savage Worlds, and this podcast is dedicated to Savage Worlds, but we diversify. We're cosmopolitan in gaming, or other buzzwords to make us sound fancy. But yeah, Mike's going to be one of the regulars. They're actually one of 3 main characters while I'm running the game. And we're also going to have Dan and Susan, who are from the Drunk GM podcast, which if you listen to like the old episodes before they were officially part of the GM table, I keep forgetting the name of my own network.
Yeah, it's all right.
Before they were officially part of the GM table, I was on it a lot. I don't think you ever ended up on an episode, did you, Mike?
Oh, no, Drunk GM, no. I was never...
Yeah,
you like me.
You were in our Facebook group.
Yeah, they kept asking me, and then you'd be like, hey, we're recording. And it would be like, well, I have 8 different things to do that day, so maybe next time.
And 5 of them are in-person games.
Yeah,
because you were like the luckiest man on the world when it comes to actually getting face-to-face games.
Well, that's mostly because I force people into it. It's hard to tell me no well, that's super creepy now. But
Gapist. Oh God, that's even worse.
Yeah. We can cut that, I think. I have a core group of people that I game with in person, but we've kind of forced the rest of our friends to at least try it, and most of them hang on in one sense or another. So I play not including any online games. In person games, I play 1 and I run 4. Yeah,
so this was also a bit of a leading one, Mike, because a lot of people are probably going to be like, who is this schmuck with the goatee? Why doesn't he have, full beard? Mike, not luxurious. It's just kind of patchy right now.
I mean, I kind of have something because I was sick and didn't feel like shaving this past week. And
that's how mine started, and then the wife was like, you're not allowed to shave. And now she doesn't even let me get rid of the neck beard.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a neck beard, everyone.
Well, I mean, there's neck beards and then there's neck beards.
Yeah.
So.
This is a baseball cap, not a fedora. Yeah. I think that helps. I think that But no, a lot of people, this is true, though. If you are a longtime viewer of the GM table, you will recognize Mike did an episode Savage It. You actually did the episode before Dan.
Yeah.
You did an episode before Drunk GM because, I'm a star maker, apparently.
Pretty much.
Now, I just force my friends to do podcasts.
Yeah, you just find the talent
and steal you.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, people don't know you. You're somewhat active in the Savage Worlds Facebook group, but you don't really have a channel yet. I'm making them.
Yeah, it'll probably happen.
And all that. But you have a lot of GM chops. So what are the games you're currently running? This isn't even your history or anything.
Yeah, currently running. I have, as far as Savage Worlds is concerned, I'm running a Deadlands game. I'm running the Flood, the first plot point campaign. mixed feelings about it. I love Deadlands. That plot point campaign's a little, I feel like. I'm running a game of ETU. We're about to finish freshman year if we ever play again. Having some scheduling issues. What else do I run? I run a 5th edition D&D Dark Sun game, which is also wrapping up pretty soon. And I feel like there's something else and I'm forgetting it.
Well, you did say 4, and I'm not, well, I am better at math than not great, but I can also count to 4, and that was 3.
I mean, there's so many. They all run together. I have a Savage Worlds game that's like not currently running. It's on hold while we run finish the Dark Sun game, and then that's going to come back at some point. That's like a sci-fi game.
Yeah, I was wondering when you're going to bring up the sci-fi game, because you're constantly like, hey, I have this idea for my sci-fi game.
Yeah, we haven't been running that for like the last couple months because we just wanted to take a break from it. It was like the end of the season, so to speak. But that'll be coming back in probably 2 months. One of our players is away for a few months for work, so we'll be starting that back up. And that's I looked at Last Parsec and I'm like, I like a lot of the stuff in here, but I'm just going to steal it and create my own setting and shove some of it into it.
In other words, you're going to run Iron Gate because Iron Gate's awesome.
I've already been reading that and making plans for this upcoming season of the game, so that'll probably encompass about half of it.
But yeah, so what you're telling me is I need to invest in more mics, more cameras, and like gas cards, because you are like an hour and a half from me.
Yeah. And
we need to just make like Happy Jacks for the Philly area.
Yeah. I mean, and I have recently started a Facebook group with another guy I met at PAX Unplugged. His name is James Walls. He actually just published an adventure pretty recently on SWAG that was like the top adventure for like the week, or maybe so far on SWAG. I don't know. He's doing really well with it. It was awesome.
That's the wedding one, right?
Yeah, an unexpected wedding. So people should check that out. James is a cool guy. He and I started this Facebook group after going to PAX called Delaware Valley Savages. And it's basically trying to get all the people in like the tri-state area. We're both from right near Philly, and Bobby's from not too far from there.
It's fine. I'm not famous enough for stalkers. I'm in Harrisburg.
Yeah. So we're trying to build a community out this area because when we were at PAX Unplugged, we found a lot of people playing Savage Worlds games like on their own, but there was no organization for it. So we're trying to be that organization. And there's a few people who work for Pinnacle or Pinnacle adjacent who live in New Jersey that we know kind of. Like they came to our first event. We called it Savage Sunday at a game shop called Seventh Dimension in Jenkintown. We had like 15 people for the first event, so that was pretty sweet. The plan is hopefully over the year to grow that group, and then PAX Unplugged at the end of the year, we can roll in and just blow everyone's mind with Savage World stuff. So
yeah,
we'll see if it works out. But
well, I'm already planning to go to PAX, even if I don't get down to Philly this year.
Yeah.
So I'm trying. I told my wife. Actually, I screen captured our conversation. Like somebody recognized you when I was talking about Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Like, oh. Yeah. That's weird. I'm not gonna lie. It like immediately turned my stomach to knots, and I'm like, this is not normal. And like, yeah. I'm ill.
You're basically a celebrity now.
Not at all. In no form.
In what 1%? 1% celebrity. Yeah.
Let's embrace the fact that Savage Worlds is big, but it's like never gonna be Paizo or
right.
Wizards of the Coast big, and just call us the tabletop 1%.
Yeah, that's about right. Except for the money part, but you know.
Well, no, it's elitism.
Right.
You see, Here's the thing. Those peasants, they have those Paizo kids. They got Pathfinder, the Pathfinder card game, and Starfinder. Yeah. I think that's like their big stuff. Yeah. Right? They got some variety. Wizards of the Coast, we're not touching Magic. We're not talking about trading cards. They got D&D. And that's really it. Look at the settings we have.
That's true.
Like, how many of D&D settings are, it's more D&D.
Yeah.
And that's not knocking. I love D&D. And I know that's not all the settings, and there's nuance. But
I mean, even if you talk about all the settings, there's like 8 total if you stretch it?
So, you get into Planescape and Dragonlance. I'll give them 12. shooting off the top of my head. And
Yeah.
episode 1, we make fools of ourselves as we try to talk about things that aren't Savage. But
one of the good things about Savage Worlds.
yeah, I think Savage Worlds is super rich in their settings and options. Though we're going to have some drawbacks to that later in the episode.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a good segue into our first topic. We got 2 topics today. And that is, since it's our first episode, we're doing an entire podcast called SWADEcast. Why? Why Savage Worlds? Why are we doing this? Why are we dedicating an entire podcast to Savage Worlds? Technically to the new edition.
Yeah. I mean, although how long before the new edition is just the edition? So
well,
it's new now, but in another year.
How long till the new Shaken rules are just the Shaken rules? It's been 2.5, 3 years.
I was going to say it's been 3 years now, I think, going on
yeah.
it. So.
I'm hoping now that it's in a core book, it's not the new Shaken.
The new Shaken, yeah.
And if you have strong feelings about the new Shaken rules, feel free to comment down below and bicker and fight and all that, because all that does is raise our metrics.
I thrive on that. So
I know. You have been my pit bull I just unleashed when people are super ignorant.
Yeah.
I think I've done it 3 times when people are just being total jackasses. I'm like, hey Mike, here's a
Go
link.
look at those comments, yeah. Yeah, but I think it's funny though, because with the new Shaken rule, we also now have the stunned condition, which is effectively the old Shaken rule.
Only worse. In good ways. In good ways. I love stunned.
I do too.
But keeping on topic, we're not talking about what we like about SWADE yet. That's topic 2. We discussed this before recording, Mike.
Yeah.
I have to go get the whip. Just start beating you.
No comment.
Not like that.
I mean, that was kind of like that game I ran at Savage Sunday, actually. But we can talk about that another time.
I guess you do have game stories.
Yeah.
But was that your Fade to Black game? Was that your X card game? I do have.
It maybe should have been, but it was more for the body horror that the person playing the obese character was inflicting on our game. Not going to name any names.
Okay.
I hope she's listening / watching.
I hope they are.
She knows who she is.
We need the views. We're brand new. So why Savage Worlds? Why is this your game or your system of choice? Because it's not just one game. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the biggest sticking point is the flexibility and the modability. My background, I mean, obviously, like most of us, I came from D&D, 3rd edition, and I played earlier editions too, but 3rd was the one I was really into. 4th came out, and we don't talk about 4th.
I talk about 4th.
No.
It's just not D&D, but talk about it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Not D&D.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went into Fate initially, and I had a great Fate group. I love Fate. I think it's one of my favorite systems. But it is, I found out after playing it for, I ran a campaign in it for 3 years with the same players. But trying to run other games in it were never quite as successful, and I realized that it's a game that you kind of need the right group for.
Very much so.
Yeah. Savage Worlds.
I did not have great opinions of Fate till I was in a game you ran. I'm like, wait, this can actually be really fun.
Yeah. Savage Worlds is a game that I feel like anybody can pick up, and you don't need quite the level of narrative storytelling ability to enjoy and play Savage Worlds. It's a little crunchier than something like Fate, but it's not like Pathfinder or anything.
I think Kurt Weigel of Game Geeks put that best, and I quote that shit all the time about the crunchiness.
Yeah.
Where it's like is like porridge and dirt is like pine nuts, but Savage Worlds is like Cheerios. It's crunchy, but it's a good kind of crunchy. It's right in the middle of what you would expect crunch to be.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. And I feel like the system itself is so flexible and very easy to learn for new players. At Savage Sunday, my table was one person who works for Pinnacle, so she knows the game a little bit, and 2 people who never, ever played Savage Worlds. And by the end of that 4-hour one-shot, they both had a pretty good idea of what they were doing. Now, I mean, you do have your outliers who are people who never learn any game systems, but that's a whole different issue.
Or I've found, and this isn't a bad thing, but I've found people who are like so mired in one system. They're like,
Right.
I don't get it. Because it's not what you already know. Well, yeah, because you're not playing that game.
Yeah, put the D20 away. You're not going to need it. And if you do, you're probably in trouble. So.
Savage Worlds, put the D20 away.
That'd be a good slogan.
I'll put it on a shirt. I have no shame.
Yeah.
I'll ask Shane if I can first. I don't want to be sued.
But yeah, I love to make my own like homebrew settings, and I mean, I spend way more time doing that than I should because I don't have enough time to run all these games because I'm running so many already. But it's perfect for that, and they have so many settings already. There's so much to pull from. There's so much inspiration, and at the same time, I feel like I can still do something that feels really unique outside of the like 100 settings that already exist for the game, which is something pretty unique, I feel like.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we do have stuff like GURPS and like not Pinnacle, Penelec. No, that's electrical people. The people who do riffs.
Palladium.
Palladium. It's another P name. Like they have a bunch of saying stuff too. Like it's not completely unique, but I do think their sayings are unique. No,
I meant more how you can like. There are other people who have a million different settings, and then the game is those settings. Whereas Savage Worlds, they have a million different settings, but each feels like its own thing. And when you make your own thing, it feels like its own thing. It doesn't feel like I'm just like I made my sci-fi game. I pulled a lot from Last Parsec, but it doesn't feel like the Last Parsec. Like
one or two changes is all you need for it to feel totally different, which I love.
Yeah.
I do think it's one of those funny things because you, in a lot of ways, Mike, were like my first of what's kind of become the new guard of my players. Because you were gaming with me before Dan, before Susan. But you were there with like the people I'd been gaming with for a decade who were the Pathfinder players. Because most of that group are people who like constantly wanted me to run Pathfinder and stuff like that. And you can tell that I'm trying not to put it as a derogatory term. Sometimes I do use it as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
But they want a very crunchy game. A very, very crunchy game. Savage Worlds is crunchy enough for them to enjoy it. Where at the same time, Savage Worlds is narrative enough that my group who are playing Powered by the Apocalypse games and Fate games are also enjoying Savage Worlds and are in Savage Worlds games. I think there's something that can very much be said by the fact that I can get that different of gamers at the table running one system. And it's not like, oh, I'm only using the narrative, like some of the rules for this group and some of the rules. I can run all the rules and everyone will enjoy it.
Yep.
And I do think that. That's like when we were like doing the pre-show, I totally forgot about that. Because mine is I'm a lazy GM. I'm really lazy. It's funny, we've been doing a lot of Monster of the Week and Apocalypse World, so I think there's going to be a lot of compares to that. But we were saying beforehand, like, I'm really enjoying that system. It's still not going to be, like, my favorite system because those super narrative games, similar with, like, Fate and stuff, the GM has to know everything beforehand. Now, maybe not where the story's going and things can shift, but, like, you got to know exactly how much damage things do. You got to know all the abilities something has, and very little of that is pre-existing. You have to make it up.
Right.
Savage Worlds is a combination of, oh, it's just a bad guy. He doesn't really matter. Here, he has a D6. The D6 goon is amazing. Or, I need a lich. I got a lich.
Right. Well, there's so many setting books and stuff, too. If you need a monster, somebody's made it somewhere.
Yeah.
It exists in Savage World somewhere. So
yeah. And those issues with things like the Fate games and the Powered by the Apocalypse games and stuff is like, one Fate game is actually less likely to be compatible with another Fate game than more likely to be.
Right.
And Powered by the Apocalypse are even more so. I've yet to see two of those that have the same core rules. So with Savage Worlds, things can just like hot swap around. And yeah, some things will have like maybe a setting rule to be accounted for, but it's like very little tweaking, if anything. And you can take things out of one setting, throw it in another, throw it in your own setting, and you're done.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that is that like modular kind of, you can just swap things in and out, take pieces out, put new pieces in, and the game system still works.
It's actually very hard to break Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Now you can. Yeah. The big thing is if you're looking going, this breaks Savage Worlds. Well, it's still possible. The main thing is, are you still using all the worlds?
Right.
Like Savage Worlds mainly breaks when you forget to use parts of it.
Right.
Less so than when you add things. Which I believe Clint said, like it's all meant to be a base.
Right.
You're not really supposed to take anything out, but you can build almost anything on top of the base they made. So moving on with that, especially since like I think we've said our piece. Now for opinion on SWADE. Like not just why Savage Worlds, but we got a new edition. And I guess I will carry over of why are we doing a podcast based on the new edition? Well, it's the edition moving forward. We were gonna do a Savage Worlds podcast and a new edition came out, so that's an easy name. But
can we call this episode the new Shaken Rules?
God help us.
Just to screw with everyone?
What's wrong with Shaken? But no. How do you feel about SWADE? Like overall favorite part, least favorite part? I know your favorite part.
Yeah. Overall, I absolutely love it. Like, I mean, I told you this before, but 70% of the things in this edition, and that is not an actual number. I'm making that up. I haven't, like, parsed this out. But a lot of the things in the game are house rules I was already running at my table, like athletics. I didn't roll throwing into athletics in my games, but climbing and swimming, my players were like, why the hell do I need to take these skills? And I'm like, you know what, let's just call it athletic. A lot of the changes, especially a lot of the things with the skills, I mean, there are a few complaints I have about some of the new edges. Still don't understand why two-fisted and two-gun kid need to be two separate things. But
what isn't there to understand there? It's a fist and a gun.
Yeah. And then how do you throw? But yeah.
You need a D8 shooting, of course.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is probably my biggest complaint about.
Should they fix it with a third edge, Mike?
Probably, yeah. Well, no, now if you have both, you can do both. So they fixed it technically.
No, a throwing edge.
Oh, two throw Joe. I'll pitch that.
Okay, I kind of actually love two throw Joe. I'm two throw Joe. Whoa, whoa.
Just carry around like rocks to throw at people.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Improvise two throw Joe.
I feel like there's been with the skills and everything, they've tried to make them a little more condensed and a little more all-encompassing. Athletics, maybe a little too much so. That's how some of the community feels, at least. I'm kind of on the fence. But then with some of the edges, they added a level of extraness that feels like counter to what they did with the skills. So, like, splitting two-fisted into shooting and fighting, and, well, there's also throwing, but that was a whole different issue. Or splitting the quick draw edge into two edges and then completely removing it from the game entirely in the next update to the edition because people complained. I kind of wish that they had had a better idea of what they wanted SWADE to be when they first dropped it. It feels like they had this idea and then everybody was like, no, we hate these things. And they're like, okay, we'll change them.
Yeah.
And then people were like, well, that change wasn't thought out. And they're like, yeah, it wasn't. So let's change it again. And I do think that for the most part, it's not that big a deal. I mean, it's not like they're charging us for these updates. I just wish that I feel like they could have been a little clearer about it.
Yeah.
And maybe had a better game plan with it. Because I have heard people, like even at Savage Sunday, this past Sunday, there was somebody like complaining about it. And I've heard a few people complain about it. And when you're putting out a new edition, the last thing you want to do is piss off your fan base. And that's how edition wars start. And that and the issue with the jump starts, which really kind of grinds my gears.
We'll do a whole episode.
That could be something we can talk about another time.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it, but I'm gonna put a note down. Episode.
Because that's not an edition issue. That's
no.
Overall, I love the new edition. I've heard the new chase rules are great. Haven't played them myself, but my wife has, and she really liked them. I mean, for the most part, all the changes. The new conditions, I think they clean things up a lot. The way tests work now versus the old tricks and tests of wills, I think cleans things up a lot. Overall, the game just seems to run a lot smoother. Because I've played probably a good 10 to 12 sessions now, like of SWADE, maybe a little more because I had an alpha copy, although it's changed a lot since then.
I was going to get into that on my end.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, the alpha copy. Well, I can see how this looks like. So I took like our Deadlands characters, and when I had the alpha copy, I just converted them all to like what they'd look like, just to see, kind of like a experiment. And like, I was like, okay, nobody really seems to lose anything. That's good. And so I told my players about it a little bit. I obviously couldn't show them the book because of that NDA stuff, but told them about it. They're like, cool. And then the first edition of the new edition came out. And we're like, okay, let's do this officially. Converted all the characters. And then the next new edition of the new edition came out like a week or two later. And my players were like, I have to change things again. And I'm like, yeah. We probably should have just waited. And then it happened 2 more times. And overall, it didn't really seem to affect things too much. I think like one player had to drop an edge here or something else, like shift a skill point there. Like it wasn't a big deal, but it was just really funny trying to start a new game in the new edition and then having to like, wait, nope, gotta change.
It's not the new edition.
Yeah.
No, I'm very much in the same boat. We've discussed this ad nauseum personally, but I love SWADE. Almost everything I've read in SWADE, I love. There actually, even the things that I don't love in the book, I'm not as hung up on as you are. But I do get that, Greg. Like, that's weird. I think needing a D8 shooting to have 2-gun kid, but you can throw with it is weird.
Yeah. They did change that in the latest update. So, but
I think I'll start with the negative, other than I do love the edition because you always want to open with that. Hell, I'm doing a whole podcast dedicated to it. So if I need to defend myself, I already have. But yeah, I think the handling of it, I'm right there with you. I think the almost flippant changing of rules and how quickly they did, it's not even just that it's confusing and stuff. I'm going to get into that. But it makes it feel like you're not confident in your rules.
Right.
Which then is like, why should I be confident in the rules? And then I'm not as confident in you because I'm going to invest in the rules, and I don't know when you're just going to turn around and change them. Like the first change, it's like, well, now I'm not confident in the rules. Like you said, this has been play tested. I know they were saying like, well, no, these other ones have been play tested before, but we didn't think they really fit, so we went with these. Yeah, so now you're changing them to what you thought were failures.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help. That actually makes it worse. And then you're changing it again, and now I'm unsure what the next change is going to be. Like our friend Susan, she flat out was like, I enjoy Savage Worlds, and I was really going to get much more into it in the new edition, but I don't want to start any games. I don't want to run any games because I'm not going to start a game and get new rules. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like the iron is hottest right when you release, and they released at like version 2, and we're up to 4.1.
I think it's only 4.1 because they didn't want to say 5.
Yeah, because they said there would only be 4 versions.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's the way to get around it, though. It's like AOL.
God, AOL callback. But that's not good for like a community standpoint. Right. That causes a lot of issues. It's this, whenever a new edition comes out, this is the chance for Savage Worlds to explode again and like really grow rapidly. And that got screwed up.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest on that. They fucked that up in a lot of ways. When people are going, well, no, I've also heard about these changes, so I don't want to do it. You fail at that point.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, I do think the final game is great, actually. I agree with you. I actually love the conditions. I really love that new stunned because it's a condition that automatically gives the drop.
Right.
So now confusion on things like the drop are a lot less. I think for the most part, confusing wording's almost entirely gone. There's still a few things where it's like hire proofreaders. Like, and I know it's mainly a one-man crew, but yeah, contract a proofer. Yeah. I think my biggest issue not only it stems to the same of like up to version 4.1 of we don't know what it is and all. Publishers, you and I both got advanced copies of the alpha, and we're supposed to get these so we can start working on books, because books take a lot of time, especially if you're making entirely new rules, and you have to test those rules and make sure they work. And if you have a book mostly done, because we had alpha for about 6 weeks, and they go, yeah, 1.0, the first one the public sees is, well, I don't want to say nothing like, but it's as much of a change to alpha as alpha was from the core, from deluxe.
Yeah, it was pretty significant in a lot of.
So it's like our last 6 weeks of work have been garbage. We have to trash them. Fluff can stay, but I could have done fluff without an alpha.
Right.
I was talking to you about books. I don't know when or if I'm going to put out books, partially because also some things are out or coming out. Then I'm like, well, I don't like making repetitive products, but it's like I had the alpha. Things were going to come out early, and with those changes, I'm not even done.
Right.
Because our buddy Nate, who runs Tricky Troll Games, he flat out said by the time number 2 came out, I was like, I'm not going to write anything for Savage Worlds till the final edition's out.
Right.
Why am I going to do the work when it's just going to change?
Yeah.
So now it's not just alienating potential new customers, because the diehards are going to follow anyway. So there'll be a bit of a split, but if they're not following to a new edition, you're not making money from a business sense anyway. So like when it comes to that, they still matter, but fiscally, if you're not buying books, you don't matter.
Right.
But your third-party people are going, I'm not making products for your system because we can't.
Yeah, either that or they're putting out a product and being forced to update it the next week because the next edition comes out. That's a whole different issue. But
I think we'll lump this in with the jump starters, or you have people who go, oh yeah, SWADE's out. We're going to put out a product. It's for deluxe, but we're not going to tell you.
Yeah. That seems to fit in with the jumpstart topic pretty well, so we can talk about it. It
does.
Yeah.
And I do actually think that's partially because of all the version changes. That's not excusable. But it's also a bit of a mess Pinnacle made for themselves.
Yeah.
Now, that said, the finalized rules, how they are, they run really smooth. Smoother than anything. I haven't gotten a chance to go really deep in the chase rules, and I know people are asking me to do a video about chases. I'll do it when I know enough about the chases and I've tested them enough to give you a good video. It's going to be a few months till I do a chases specific video, everybody.
Yeah.
Seriously, like at least once every 2 weeks I get it. I'm not
I mean, it's really weird how over how many years has it been, even going back into deluxe, where people are like, the chase rules are confusing. I feel like, I mean, from what I hear, the new ones run awesome, but they're still kind of, you have to wrap your head around it first. They're a little detailed, which is not a bad thing.
The deluxe ones aren't hard to run. I'm actually one of those people. But they do create weird fringe situations where you have to tell your players, no, you can't do that because of rules.
Yeah.
And no real reason, just arbitrarily the rules don't like it.
It says this, yeah. So,
it doesn't seem to have that in it.
I just think it's funny that Savage Worlds has just struggled so much with chases in general for so long, it seems like. I feel like there's always somebody complaining about chases. And then there's always somebody who's saying, oh, bring back the chase rules from Explorers Edition. I don't even know what those are. I've never looked at them. But I feel like I hear that once a week on like the Facebook page.
We need to do some research and dedicate an entire episode to like the different chase rules.
The history of chases.
The history of Savage World chases.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely, I do want to say, and I say this in the Facebook group and everything frequently, but if you think the current chase rules are too complicated or you don't want complicated chase rules, quick encounters literally tells you can use it for chases.
Yeah.
And that works. I find it funny, and this is one of those things that bugs me a little, but I also like, just depending on when you do it. I don't know how I feel about networking.
Yeah, I haven't really used it too much.
I think it screws up ETU and like mystery games.
Yeah.
You have to do all your networking with one roll.
Yeah.
Now, if they lumped networking into quick encounters, because it just is a quick encounter.
Right.
That's all it is. And then they're like, here's the modifier you can use for persuasion. Here's the modifier you can use for intimidate. But it's just a quick encounter. If they lumped it in there so people can make the connection, it could be a staged encounter and have multi-part sections.
Right. I was going to say.
It fixes it.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you it's a quick encounter, though it is mechanically.
Right. Well, I think the other thing, though, is, I mean, different GMs run games differently, too. And
yes.
I know some people just want to get to, like, the big action set pieces or whatever. So if you're a GM who's like, oh, you guys need to find out this information, go do some networking. And it's like, I rolled an 8 persuasion. And he's like, good, you get the information you need. Now go here.
Yeah.
Like, there are GMs like that. I am about as far to the opposite direction as possible.
Same.
Encounters and, like, action set pieces for me are often afterthoughts in most of the sessions of my games, unless it's, like, the main antagonist of the game, super big boss battle. Most of my games are role-playing and social aspects and investigation.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like,
I think what's fine, this isn't even like how we're going to fix SWADE, but we've gone on a sidetrack. These are going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
But I think what's funny is, first of all, my issue isn't that that's an option. I totally get that as an option for some game types.
Yeah.
However, not counting third-party settings where there's a ton, this is also a system that has Deadlands Noir and ETU.
Yeah.
And there isn't a system for doing it any other way within the rules unless you make it up yourself. Right. There should at least have like a sidebar in networking of like, hey, check out stage encounters or check out dramatic, even say like, or it could be a dramatic task if you want more depth.
Yeah.
Like just that, a little sidebar. And this is a thing that goes all the way back in Savage Worlds of like, if you just added a little note to help people who don't already know how to do it. Which, to be fair, I'm making a career on having a YouTube channel that is those notes for people. But, like, if they had put it in as a quick encounters already have that note.
Right.
So it would have carried. Like, I do get it being there, but how it's written in the book makes it seem like that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, personally, I mean, again, different GMs have different styles. One of the things I dislike about this edition is there are fewer social skills, and I feel like social skills matter less because now it's basically you have persuasion, you have intimidate, and technically taunt, but taunt's only good because there's a bunch of edges for it.
I was going to say, we're going to get into taunt. They guaranteed us taunt and intimidate. We're going to stay in the game, and they're both going to be made useful.
Yeah.
They made intimidate useful.
Yeah.
Taunt is a key.
Right.
Taunt is gatekeeping for really cool edges. Now, those edges, fucking cool.
Yeah.
It could just as easily been persuasion.
Right.
If you didn't want to make persuasion too powerful.
Yeah, you could have made intimidate, just change the name of intimidate and give a positive social skill and a negative social skill. Like in, just using Fate as an example, they have rapport, which would be like persuasion, and provoke, which is basically rolls intimidate, taunting, like all that kind of stuff into one. It's just the negative skill, like to get people to feel bad or do negative things to them with social stuff. And it feels like that's kind of how they wanted to go and just didn't want to get rid of taunt.
Because too many people would be mad that the skill list got too small.
Right.
I do feel like, well, funny enough, talking about those edition, I do feel those versions, I do feel like this is an edition where it's a lot of compromises.
Yeah.
Just like how I feel 5th edition D&D has a lot of compromises when you dig deep into it. I think a lot of those were once a game has been around enough, you have to struggle with, I hate to tell this for people who love their older game, but improved game design because we've evolved the hobby versus what people expect because it was in the last version.
Right.
Because let's be honest, D&D 5th edition, going side time, but I think it's relevant. 5th edition D&D, the first 3 pre-written adventures went, you don't use XP.
Yeah.
Because 5th edition actually isn't designed to use XP, but you have to have it.
Yeah. I mean, so I miss Streetwise as a skill. It's a cool
I don't like the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the edge because I don't love networking. I think it's an interesting idea to turn that into an edge, but I guess this is more a little bit story time and house rule kind of stuff. But in my games, I also use Streetwise for reading people when you're trying to get a feel for how they are, because I figure somebody who can hit the streets and gain information can usually tell if that information's good or not.
Or like the streetwise guy who's been around a bit, but
Yeah.
might not be good at talking to people, still knows when people are lying because he's been around a bit.
Right, and in the core, you're supposed to use notice for that, and I feel like that's a whole nother problem because notice is such a strong skill all the time.
We'll have an episode about that. Episode 1, subtitle, The Things We're going to have episodes about.
But yeah, so I always used Streetwise for that, and now Streetwise doesn't exist. So I've been taking to house ruling, just adding a new skill called empathy, which I just stole the name from.
I think some of your more social settings, at least third-party ones, will probably start seeing something like that.
But even in ETU, I feel like something like that's important because socializing and networking are so important in that game, and the networking system itself is just so bare bones.
Well, I think ETU is a perfect example because this does bring into my other thing I wanted to bring up with this, and then we'll probably be done because we've actually been running for a while.
Yeah.
But this is Savage World 2nd Edition.
Yeah.
This, and no, it's not, it's a new edition. We've had new editions. If you trace Savage World, okay, Deluxe could be a new edition. They did make some big changes. But, like, the difference between pre-Deluxe and Deluxe, because everything before that were just, like, mainly minor revisions, is kind of like the difference of D&D 3 to 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, weapons changed to dice. That was probably the biggest thing. I think that's when raises changed. I need to brush up on my Savage Worlds history.
I think so. That sounds right. But I played Explorers Edition like once or twice before Deluxe, so I don't.
Those are big changes. Like, I don't want to undermine that, but they don't like heavily change picking up material or converting. You're just going, all right, we're using this rule instead of this rule.
Right. Yeah, there are still old books that were never updated for Deluxe. And you look at the weapon values and you're like, oh, well, the dagger deals 1 damage. I'm like,
or there's one table that you convert.
Right.
ETU, well, actually, we'll get the big one out of the way. Neither of us really run it. Riffs, Savage Riffs, is currently unplayable in SWADE.
Yeah.
Because you could use the existing mega trappings, but they don't make sense with the new powers.
Mm-hmm. The new powers are awesome. Overall.
The new powers are awesome. I love
them.
That's
one of my favorite things about the new book. I didn't think to say it before, but I love the modular like modifiers and all that stuff. But anyway, you were saying.
Savage Riffs isn't playable in SWADE without house ruling or writing new conversion rules yourself. Here's the thing. Yes, you can do that. However, if you say you can play Savage Riffs with SWADE, that's not, you can play Savage Riffs with SWADE if you convert it. I can play Savage Riffs with anything if I convert it, and we don't really run that, but I don't know how much you've really handled this. I hear Last Parsec has a bit of this issue, but ETU has a big problem going into SWADE. Because one of ETU's core things, not the monster hunting, the college side of things is your major, which is a knowledge skill, and knowledge skills don't exist, and you have a derived stat called academics, which is now a skill.
Yeah.
That's not auto conversion. Now I'm going to do a whole video of it, but what I do is I do some people are doing like picking which majors are specializations of which of the like knowledge skills.
Makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
I just do it all as academics. Yeah. Because it's not applied. Yeah. It's your tests and all are on theoretical stuff. So it all is technically academics.
Right.
So it's just make specializations for academics. And then I literally make that academics modifier a modifier to all academics roles.
Right.
Which actually does make characters more powerful in the SWADE version. But here's the thing. I had to do that.
Right.
I had to figure that out. And I'm a guy who spent the last year and a half making videos to teach people, which is harder than just learning yourself, by the way, to teach people this system. I knew Deluxe inside and out, and hopefully I'll know SWADE inside and out as I do all of this work.
Yeah.
And it still took me like a few hours to be like, what's the best way to handle this?
Because I figure out how you're going to do it. Yeah. Because that's what I did too in the end. I basically just asked my players, look, these are the 2 things I'm thinking. Will you just keep your skills how they are and just pretend that this is not a thing and don't worry about it? Or we can switch everything over to academics. I think, ultimately it helped them to switch over to academics. but I also think in general, characters converted from Deluxe end up more powerful in SWADE, like 9 times out of 10. So
SWADE is more player friendly.
Yeah.
And Savage Worlds was already kind of, but SWADE, that another one of those gripes. I'll get like way too many things expect you to get critical failures. And I know you can't bend out of them, but the odds of critical failures are so minute. They're now rules that really aren't worth learning.
They do have a setting rule to bending out of critical failures.
But
luck, which is hilarious. But yeah,
I actually love that setting rule.
Yeah.
But since they did that, a lot of stuff is like only on a crit fail now.
Right.
But still, one of the things I loved about the Kickstarter was it came with so many settings. And some of them were settings I already had. And all of those need you to convert. I get why they didn't for Deadlands, because they're going to be releasing a new Deadlands.
Yeah.
And I also get it would have been more work. But you knew the settings you were going to give people. You should have at least had the conversion for the settings that you knew everyone who had SWADE was going to have.
Right. I mean, Pinnacle has what, like 5 core settings they still support anyway. So, I mean, I don't know how many initial settings they have. I think it's probably around between 10 and 15 would be my guess.
This is going to sound a little cynical. First of all, as much as I've talked to Ed and Preston, who wrote ETU, I'm sure if they were like, here's the rules, please make a conversion document, they would have. Like, happily. Because, again, if you really know what you're doing, it's an hour, maybe 2. Yeah. And then you take it, you format it. So within a few hours, you have it done.
Right.
But here's the thing. Alpha wasn't version 1. Version 1 wasn't version 3.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew what the game was going to be.
Yeah.
Which comes back to our first problem. I love the final product, but yeah, it was already behind the estimated dates we were going to get it. And I don't know if it ended up way behind, but it didn't feel like it was ready. It felt, I don't want to say half-baked, like, oh, it's a bad idea. That felt like it needed some more time in the oven.
Yeah, I feel like they needed
3 months.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think, and that would be pushing, but that would be enough time to have conversions done.
Yeah.
All of that. I know it would have pushed into a different quarter. And it would have pushed into a different year, which might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
But because there's a whole business side, and we don't know all the ins and outs. We're here in our armchairs talking about it. But if it had even 3 months to sit and like them basically go, maybe throw some more test stuff out, like throw out those test chase rules when it wasn't the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And go and be like, all right, then we're changing. Here's what we're thinking of. And then based on that, go, okay, throw out some of the stuff like that. Give us a few more sneak peeks. Because the people who are reading the sneak peeks were going to buy the book anyways.
Right.
There's this common thing I've dealt with in publishers and stuff. And I'm not speaking for Shane or anything, but I know a lot of publishers are like, well, we don't want to give them too much for free. They won't buy the book. The people who are reading that stuff will already buy your book. Especially if they're in like single little articles you have to hunt down if you're not getting them as they happen.
Yeah.
They'll buy the book. And the people who wouldn't want to buy the book won't bother hunting all it down. They'll just pirate your book. Like, it really wouldn't affect your sales. Pushing it out a quarter might affect how well Pinnacle's doing.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know that end of stuff. But it does. It felt like it needed a few more months in the oven. Be confident in the rules and be like, maybe test to see what people like, and then be like, here, we get, like, put out version 1, and then do or put out version 4, and then do 4.1.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Would have been nice.
Woulda.
Probably would have been better long-term for the
company. Yeah.
Third-party publishers. I do feel like Pinnacle needs to get those conversion documents out much sooner rather than any later.
Yeah, as sooner as in they should have already happened. I don't think we're going to see conversion docs, though, until an associated Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Like, we won't see the ETU conversion doc until an ETU Kickstarter. We're never going to see a Deadlands conversion doc.
Well, no. I expect not to see a Deadlands one because we know that's going to be this upcoming year. They're doing a new version, which is fine. But if ETU's not coming out for another year after that, or whatever other books, I don't know, you need those documents out. It's not a lot of work.
The funniest thing, and I feel like this was just like a horrible oversight, But the funniest thing, this won't fix everything, but just have one PDF that says, here's how you handle charisma, which is literally just change it to a persuasion modifier.
Yeah.
That's all it is, everybody.
Yeah.
And here's how you handle knowledge skills, because all your settings use knowledge skills. And I mentioned last parsec because in last parsec as it is, characters all start with a number of knowledge skills for free.
Right.
What happens to those? How do you convert them? Do they now just start with that many specializations and any of the knowledges, and do all the knowledges now have specializations? Like, how's that work? We don't know. We have to figure it out. If it was just those two things, like if it covered knowledge skills, a lot of this would be kind of fixed. Like it wouldn't be as bad, but that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a 1,000 little changes. Characters do not look the same going in one end and out the other. I do think most of the settings you can start a new campaign with, but existing campaigns, finish it in deluxe.
I can speak to that because we did that with our Deadlands campaign.
We did that with Savage Tales.
Well, yeah.
That was going to be a podcast. That's why we didn't have a podcast for so long. And it was good. You heard some of those episodes.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't confidently like change everybody's character. I'm
well,
not
and also the edition was still changing. So, but yeah, we did it with Deadlands, and in the end, it's been pretty successful. It took a little getting used to. One or two of the characters came out virtually the same. Like the Harrod Gunslinger came out pretty much the same because most of his edges were from the Deadlands book, like the hip shooting edges, and they don't need to change for the new edition. They might, but they don't need to. The one character had like a D8 situational, not D8, +8 charisma, and because they had the attractive edge, the charismatic edge, or no, they had noble and attractive, and they're a Texas Ranger, so that gives you a +2 charisma for people who respect authority. There's something else. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. So that character had to undergo a fair number of changes because... Oh,
yeah. Like, nobles now, well, which side of noble do you want? Because now it's 2 edges.
Right.
So charismatic, I love the new charismatic, but it's super different.
Yeah. And she's still a good character, but...
It's not your character.
It's not the same. Right.
Yeah.
And overall, I think they came out pretty okay, but I have some issues with the Flood already as a plot point campaign, so it's finally at the part where it's good, which is plot point 7. I think there's 8 plot points.
Getting ready for that ending.
Yeah. So, well, plot point 7 is also, the game's very railroady up to that point. And then plot point 7 is like, now it's a sandbox game, explore all of California and try and find these hidden glyphs to stop the end of the world. So you can be on plot point 7 for half a year, or years, depending on how much you want to stretch it out, but it shouldn't take that long to get there, is my issue.
Yeah.
But
well, we can have a thing where we discuss points.
Yeah, I can talk a lot more about that in a different episode.
We went down a little bit of a rabbit hole of negativity.
Yeah.
It's also just easier to talk about the things you dislike, because it's like, well, no, there's not many. And the things that are kind of glaring, at least for us. Yeah. But I do want to reiterate, as a whole, we actually love SWADE. Like, I think the final product is great. How we got there, we mainly have issues with.
Right.
But with that, I think we've rambled long enough.
Yeah.
So it's time to talk about our sponsor, because we have a sponsor. We both work for that sponsor. Just full disclosure. And that is GameMastersForHire.com. That's the number 4. If you're watching the video, I'll have our little thing come up. But Game Masters for Hire, which as of right now will take you to a Patreon page till the main web page is done with our webmasters and all. Patreon, I believe, is current. Yeah, they're currently using Patreon to set up the billing process because it's monthly. And it's either hire a GM, buy tickets for one-shots, get into campaigns, all kinds of stuff where you can find professional GMs that are held up to standards. Not just some guy saying, oh, I'm a professional GM, but people who are hired, and if they don't do their job well, will be fired, as well as backups. Things like if your GM is sick, there will be someone to call in and substitute, and things like that. So your game never gets ruined. So Game Masters for Hire. And I think that's it, other than we're part of the GM Table YouTube channel and podcast network. And I guess we'll catch you guys in episode 2. Anything you want to say before we go, Mike?
Not really. I'm good. Thanks for listening.